And then there is what I'll call for now distraction, but we're actually going to look underneath distraction, because distraction is the high level programming language, but there is something underneath distraction. And this is one of the most important things I've ever been taught in my life, that there is something underneath. There is a root cause of distraction. This is from Rendezvous. Rendezvous asks, do you lose motivation? And how do you stay consistent? This channel has gold content. Thank you for providing us premium education here. I'm glad you enjoy it. Okay, so I would explain it. Just give my mind a moment to buffer and answer here. The way I would approach this, first to answer your question, yes. The short answer is yes. I absolutely lose motivation. In fact, I can tell you that this week, most days, so I wake up relatively early, usually 6 a.m. And most days this week that I woke up, I was not motivated to do anything. And I did it anyways. So the answer is yes, I absolutely lose motivation. I am not an intrinsically motivated human being. I'm naturally, and by way of the crappy upbringing I had, pretty unmotivated in general. I'm quite lazy by nature. So how do I still be consistent? There's really two things you want to look at here. So the first thing is, what is your policy? Which is another way of asking personal standards, which is another way of saying habits / behaviors. So the easiest way to get started establishing a policy, and I'll explain why you would want to do that, is to do two things. One, to-do list, and then basic schedule. So now how you set these things up is going to depend on a lot of experimentation. Before I get into what I do, you have to understand I'm one of these people who part of my brain is very obsessive and likes structure, and then another part of my brain is very big picture, likes freedom. That's probably why I am as weird as I am, is I have like two different, I have like a big picture, super creative side, and then like a mechanical robot side of me, and I have to keep both of those sides happy. So for me, I'll start with the schedule. I like to follow a basic schedule where I track my hours. I have a basic routine. So my basic routine is like this. 6 a.m. wake, usually 6, maybe 6:30 workout, 6:20 / 6:30 workout, 7 a.m., you get it, a.m., meditate for a half hour, and then 7:30 start working. And this changes totally depending on what I'm doing, but this is the general rubric that I follow. I work out, I meditate, I work. So have a basic routine. After that, the only other thing I do is I'll have an idea. I used to like say work until 1:30 or whatever I want to do. I don't do that anymore. So let's go to this. I track my hours. I aim for an average of 6 hours of solid work. So when I say solid work, I don't mean I'm looking at my phone. I mean 6 hours I am actually working. I'm focused on what I'm doing each day without weekends. So I don't take days off unless I have to. Sometimes your body or situations will force you to. So the first part of my day is pretty scheduled, and then the rest of my day, I just have to get 6 hours of work done each day. So this is the first part of my answer here. You need some kind of structure. And what structure works for you will depend on you. I'll get to why you need a structure in a moment. This is the first half. If you are very Asperger's or autism spectrum disorder, I apparently am. I've been talking to a medical professional about this. I probably have autism spectrum disorder. I suspected that for a long time, but I'm weird in that way. If you tend to be ASD, you'll probably want quite a bit of structure. You'll probably want to know exactly what you're doing at specific times of day. You might want to structure your whole day. Experiment. See what works for you. I like a pretty middle. I like some structure, but not too much structure, because my life is too hectic. And if I structure things too much and then I can't follow that structure, which is almost every day, I get upset. So that's why I find a balance. So let's get to the second part of this. So you need to establish what I would call a policy. And when I say policy, I mean like what a CPU has, a computer. This is the policy we follow, the structure. Now let's get to the mental side of things. So the mental side is, so the other half, to go straight to the heart of this question, do I lose motivation? Absolutely. Let's examine what motivation is. Motivation is a combination of two things. I can't type today apparently. And here's how I like to quantify these things. We have a mechanical problem and we have an emotional problem. Maybe I shouldn't, let's say factor instead of problem, because factor is kind of negative there. As everyone here notices, motivation fluctuates. Sometimes you are inspired and motivated to get your work done. Sometimes you're not. For me, more often than not, I am not motivated to do my work. It's probably because of my brain chemistry. I'm not naturally motivated much at all. So the mechanical factor is essentially, let's start there. So the mechanical factor is an extension of health. So are you well slept? Did you eat foods which give you what I call brain fog, so an inability to focus your attention? Do you do things each day to promote a clear mind? So this would be, if you're wondering why I mentioned working out and meditating, the reason I do those things primarily is so exercise, meditation, looking at your diet. I do those things so I can focus on my work. And if I don't do those things, then I can't focus on my work. I literally can't focus. It's pretty funny. These are the main things. Do you avoid distraction? Someone asked about distractions, and I'll talk about that more later. So this is the mechanical things you need to look at here for motivation. I don't suggest you look at it too much as an emotional thing. The final thing, which I find most self-help material will focus way too much on the emotional side of things. Maybe that's just because I'm not the most emotional person myself. But if you read Tony Robbins, which I don't dislike Tony Robbins, but his material did not help me, and I don't like his approach very much for me. I'm sure it would help someone who is really emotional. The emotional factor is this, and this comes from Siddhartha, hopefully I spelled this right, Siddhartha Gautama. I'll give you something that Siddhartha Gautama said, who's quite good at this kind of thing. A happy mind is a mind that is ready to do work. And then I'll give you one from Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor. I'll have to paraphrase this one. I can't remember exactly what he said. Happiness is nothing but a well-ordered mind. This is definitely a paraphrase, not a quote. This is a translated quote. And both of these sayings are from 2000 plus years ago. Let's say in order to write a program, I need coffee in this cup because I'm a programmer. And let's say I wake up one day and in my coffee cup is a healthy amount of coffee in there. I've got my coffee taken care of. I need to do work. I can get my work done. I'm in a good mood. I wake up the next day and there's no coffee in my cup. But I still want to do my work. It's time for me to do my work. But my mind keeps thinking, I need coffee though. And in this case, coffee is an analogy for feeling good, is an analogy for happiness. And I don't mean happiness in an abstract sense. I mean, at the level of direct conscious experience, what do you feel like right now? Do you feel bad or do you feel good? When you have coffee in your cup, when you have happiness, you don't really need to rely on motivation. You don't really need to think, why do I need to do this? You don't have to like brainwash yourself. When your cup is empty, instead of your mind being focused on the task at hand because it's happy, your mind is going to be constantly saying, I need coffee, I need coffee, I don't feel good, I need coffee. And that's when you lose productivity and motivation. Our resident attack helicopter has asked, how do you fight distractions or how do you stay focused on a task? So this is actually related to the motivation topic, so I'll try not to repeat myself too much. So the first thing you need to understand, and if you don't take anything else away from this, this is really, really important. What is distraction? And this is really key. Okay, so I want everyone listening to do this. Next time you sit down to get some work done and you can't get that work done, your mind won't cooperate. There are two things I want you to pay attention to or look for. There is tiredness, and then there is what I'll call for now distraction, but we're actually going to look underneath distraction, because distraction is the high-level programming language, but there is something underneath distraction. And this is one of the most important things I've ever been taught in my life, that there is something underneath. There is a root cause of distraction. So how does tiredness manifest? Yawning. The simplest idea or example I can give of distraction is that I sit down to write some code and my mind tries to write the code, but in trying to formulate the problem mentally, my mind just kind of stops working. It tries and then it stops. It tries and then it stops. This is different from distraction, but they have similar characteristics, which is why I'm pointing this out. Tiredness, yawning, heavy eyes, mind stops working. Distraction is a different phenomena. And sometimes you'll have like yawning and maybe heavy eyes, but the mind does something different if you look really, really closely at it. And this is the important distinction between tiredness and distraction. Mind keeps looking for something else. In other words, craving. Okay, so in example number A, Ryan's mind tries to solve a problem and it's formulating the problem and then it just kind of goes, ugh, I can't do this. It just kind of gives up. In distraction, mind tries to solve the problem and then it thinks about something else. It thinks about, I need coffee. It thinks about a funny YouTube video. It thinks, I want to play this video game. And so this is a key thing. Tiredness is a lack of mental energy. Distraction is something different. It's not a lack of mental energy. It's, in fact, the mind will not settle and focus on the task at hand. It's bouncing around. Like, let me give you an analogy again that's 2,000 years old. The mind with craving is like a monkey endlessly swinging from tree to tree looking for fruit. So this is a mind which is taken by distraction. So this is to try and give you a mental idea of what I'm talking about. I apologize if it sounds like I'm getting super philosophical here, but I'm actually trying to describe to you at the level of direct observation the difference in the quality of mind between tiredness and distraction, which are two things I run into all the time. So, how do we deal with this? Tiredness is a result of needing to rest. Distraction is not a result of needing to rest, generally speaking. Depends on what you mean by rest. Let's say tiredness, you need sleep. In distraction, you need something else. If we look underneath, is that how you spell underneath? Geez, I hope so. I swear English is my first language. If we look underneath distraction/boredom, we actually see a emotional context of discontent/aversion/unhappy. And this is really, really important to understand. Why is your distracted mind looking for something? Because it's trying to make itself happy. The mind, let's say I'm unhappy and I'm trying to study data structures and algorithms, which is one of the driest, most boring topics you can study depending on how you're mentally wired. If I'm unhappy, data structures and algorithms is not going to make me happy. So my mind is going to be looking for distraction. Oh, look at that YouTube video. Oh, somebody tweeted me. It's looking for something. It's looking for stimulus, like a monkey swinging from tree to tree. So, how I deal with distraction on a practical level is two things. Number one, and this is actually the same thing I explained before, but I'll try not to repeat myself. I deal with it at the policy level, which means that for the first 6 to 8 hours of my day, I don't surf YouTube / news / Twitter unless I am controlling my behavior. So sometimes I have to be on Twitter or YouTube to do my business. So you either you have to deal with it at the level of policy, so that's the first thing, and then secondly, you have to, so in other words, let's just say avoid building, in other words, distraction has momentum, so avoid building distraction momentum. Don't start your day with any distracted activities. Or if you do, be very controlled about how you do that. Because if you get too distracted, it gets this momentum and it's a snowball effect. And then before long, you're done. And then you can't get anything done. The other thing is, again, as I said before, if it is true, and you don't have to believe me here, if it is true that distraction is actually a symptom of a sense of lack, which is another way of saying unhappiness, then fix the problem at the root as best you can. Now, I'm going to give you, finally, to answer this question, a practical thing I figured out about a month and a half ago, which has really helped me with my distraction. Okay, here's what I do. Let's say I'm already quite distracted and unhappy, and I am scheduled to get some work done. So let's say today I had to, number one, study Russian. Number two, record a video segment of my tutorial. Number three, work on my language. So I'm already quite distracted and unhappy. I feel like I could do a half hour of Russian. So I managed to get that done. I start with that, and then even though I managed to get that done, I still don't feel very good. And then I get to this part. So I record one video. So I do like the bare minimum of both of these tasks. And then it's like, okay, it's time for me to work on my language, but I'm not feeling good. My mind is distracted. It doesn't want to do the thing that's really important for me to do. Then I will do something else. I'll bump this down the list and I'll add something in, which I call passive learning. So, what can I do instead? I find the best of both worlds. I take an activity which occupies enough of my stimulus-addicted seeking mind, but doesn't occupy so much of my mind that I can't also learn at the same time. Let me tell you exactly what I did yesterday. This is something I did yesterday. So this is my definition, what I do for passive learning. I listened to Donald Knuth and, what's this guy's name? He's a Canadian. Yes, Brian Kernighan. Brian Kernighan. That's a slightly difficult name to pronounce. Okay, so I listened to Donald Knuth and Brian Kernighan on YouTube. So what am I doing here? I am still learning things that are relevant to what I need to do. So this is not free time, this is work time. Admittedly, I am my own boss, so I decide what is work time, and not everyone has that. But I listened to Donald Knuth and Brian Kernighan on YouTube regarding languages and compiler design. And then while doing that, I played Satisfactory, which is a video game I can play, and I don't have to really think about it, but it keeps my stimulus-addicted mind occupied. So what am I doing here? I am recognizing I do not feel good enough to do my main task right now, but I don't want to just waste time. I don't want to then just go and watch random YouTube videos. So I make a compromise with my own mind. I say, I'm going to let you play a certain kind of video game, but at the same time you have to try and listen to something which is relevant to the original task. And this does two things. It makes you feel better about yourself because you're still getting something useful done. And at the same time, you give the craving mind what it wants, which is some degree of stimulus. What I have found when I do this is that if I can actually, instead of being upset with myself and like, why can't I focus? Which makes me unhappy, which makes the distraction worse, because I've already supposed that distraction is a symptom of being unhappy. Instead, we do something that makes me feel good, like I've done something useful because I'm learning something relevant to what I'm doing, and I give my stimulus-addicted monkey mind something to play with. This is how I personally deal with distraction. So part of dealing with distraction for me is to have a policy, is to have some hours of the day where I really try not to do anything that distracts me, like looking at news, looking at YouTube videos, looking at Twitter. And then the other thing I do is if I am really stuck and I just can't focus, I do passive learning. And the cool thing about this is that I have learned so many things lately just by finally being okay with learning from a podcast or a YouTube video. Because before, I used to kind of classify passive learning as something I should do in my spare time, not like a proper work item. When I made that mental shift to say, if I can't actually write a compiler, the next best thing I can do is I can passively learn about writing compilers. And then I'm getting the best of both worlds. I'm not being mean to myself. I'm giving myself what I want, both in terms of becoming a better person and also satisfying my distracted mind. I hope that was useful for you, the Apache.